Hey folks, this is Rhykker, and Diablo 4 is about to get a hell of a lot more flamboyant. We also learned this week the identity of the teased old friend at the campfire chat, and it is not who most of us thought it would be. Path of Exile is gearing up for a massive expansion. Monster Hunter Wilds is breaking records while also breaking GPUs. Last Epoch's on the verge of a major comeback. A Warcraft 3 fan project hit me right in the nostalgia. We're gonna dive into all that and more in this week's Saturday morning news wrap-up video. Do be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified when new episodes go live. But before we move on, a quick word from this video's sponsor, Factor. We all know life can get crazy busy, especially when a new season of your favorite ARPG is starting and you want to maximize your gaming time. Well, Factor is my new go-to meal delivery service that's been helping me stay on track and save a ton of time. So, here's what shows up at my door each week. Fresh, never frozen meals that are all chef-crafted and dietitian approved. No more stressing over last-minute grocery runs or endless meal prep or freaking out at the ridiculous rising costs of ordering takeout from an app. Factor takes the thinking out of mealtime. Everything arrives ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes, which is perfect for those days when I can't be bothered to cook. You can pick from 35 weekly meal options, ranging from Calorie Smart to Keto, Protein Plus, and even vegan and veggie. I personally like to go for Protein Plus. They also offer more than 60 add-ons, including smoothies, juices, and quick bites. I love how Factor keeps my routine flexible. If I have a busy week, I can up my meal count, and if I'm traveling or just want to do some cooking, I can skip a week. No worries. It's way more budget-friendly than ordering takeout every other night, and my whole family was shocked at how tasty these meals are. These are not frozen dinners you stash in the freezer. They're quality, pre-prepared meals that you keep in the fridge. Now I've been living off HelloFresh for years, and Factor is now owned by HelloFresh. I love cooking, but I don't always have the time or energy to cook, so it's been great being able to swap between these two now. So head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code 50Rhykker to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first Factor box. That's code 50Rhykker at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. All right, starting with Diablo news. Things are about to get a little more flamboyant in Diablo 4. Diablo boss Rod Ferguson just teased that the game's cosmetics are moving away from the whole grounded aesthetic and diving into flashier, more over-the-top designs. And for anyone who's been paying attention to the in-game shop for the past year, this should be no surprise, as increasingly more fantastical designs have been making their way into the game. Also, in an interview with Wowhead shortly before D4's release, Rod said that at launch, Diablo 4 will have a gritty and grounded world. Stuff like a cow level, wings, pets would take away from that groundedness, but that they would loosen things up as they go further down the line. So we've clearly been getting that loosening up that they promised long ago. And now, in a recent interview with Stephen Totillo for GameFile, Rod said that for the first couple of years, they wanted to be really grounded with their cosmetics, but that he expects new D4 gear to get, quote, more flamboyant and more out there. The team is also interested in cosmetics that cross over with other game series. Thankfully, though, when asked if he would do a crossover with Microsoft-owned franchise Banjo-Kazooie, Ferguson laughed and said no. Warcraft crossovers, okay, it's fantasy, you can kind of fit, let's keep it thematic. Meanwhile, it sounds like battle passes might be getting a glow-up as well. Ferguson straight up called the traditional battle pass system antiquated, and he hinted at something with more player agency, possibly inspired by Call of Duty's map-style unlock system. He said, quote, there are different ways to gamify and to give the players more agency. So I think what I would say is watch this space for us. I think we're going to be introducing some interesting things. All right, we're watching. Now, Stephen Totillo's great interview and excellently written article on the interview is locked behind a paywall on GameFile, so most people can't or won't read the original. Instead, we're getting secondhand reports from outlets that are reporting on snippets of the article, which wouldn't be a problem if some of those articles weren't downright terrible. I won't call out a specific outlet, but there's an article that has been seen by a lot of people, spread around on Reddit, titled Diablo 4 lead wants to stop appeasing blasters that rush through content and claim there's nothing to do. This title obviously frames Rod in a negative light, putting an adversarial slant between Rod and the blasters, making it kind of a him versus them thing, making it seem like he's talking down to them or thinking down on them. But when you read the actual interview, which I remind you, 99% of people will not due to the paywall, well, you see that this headline is completely misleading. Here are the parts of the interview that the headline is alluding to. I'll quote directly from Totillo's piece. And this comes courtesy of Wowhead. Thank you, Wowhead. Quote, "There's a lot of pressure to feed the blasters," he said, "and there can be a public price for failing to do so. The content creator who's an influencer or is a tastemaker will be out there saying there's nothing to do. At the other end of things is the weekend player who's barely keeping up. Ferguson has mercy on those slower players. He said at DICE that he regretted only giving Diablo 4 players a 6-week gap between the launch of the game and the start of its first season. Many players simply weren't done with the main game when the seasons debuted." I'm going to jump in there a moment to say that I agree. I think that either the first season should have been a soft season and started with the game launch, or should have given a good 3 months regular season time before the launch of Season 1. I think what happened was they made a mistake with the launch of Diablo 2 Resurrected and its first season. They waited way too long. It was like 6 months or something. It was ridiculous. So they probably figured, okay, we don't want to make that mistake again, because by the time the first season of D2R launched, all the hype was dead. The thing is, D4 wasn't a solved game. D2R was. Most people jumping into D2R already had blasted the hell out of Diablo 2 and were ready to jump into a season immediately. So starting a season within a month would have been totally fine in D2R. But let's get back to the quote. "The game's current season, its 7th, is tuned very fast," Ferguson said. "Players can advance through it quickly. You start to worry a little bit because you're like, we have 12 weeks, 10 weeks, people need stuff to do, and if you can go through it this quickly, you start to go, okay, what can we be doing and how do I think about how fast this is?" And then literally this morning, my X thing goes off and I look at the notifications and it's a person saying, "Hey, I just wanted to tell you I love the current season. I only get to play 3 hours every weekend. I'm actually making progress. It feels great." And I'm like, yeah, can't forget about those guys. So that's it, folks. That's the extent of the section of the article about Rod not wanting to appease blasters who say there's nothing to do in the game anymore. Does that sound to you like Rod said he wants to stop appeasing the blasters? Because to me, it sounds like his point is that he wants to make both the blasters and the weekend players happy, and it's difficult to do that. And because the blasters are the influencers who are making the most noise, it could be easy to forget about those weekend players who aren't clamoring and posting YouTube videos about what they want in the game. Now, also in this interview, we learned that Diablo 2 Resurrected has more players than Diablo 3 right now. Rod thinks that D3 players migrated over to D4 as the game has introduced more and more of D3's features. Makes perfect sense to me. I've said for a couple of seasons now that D4 has become a better version of D3. I would not have said that at launch. In fact, I explicitly did not say that at launch. I said, in my Diablo 4 review, I said D4 is not a better D3. It is not a better D2. It is something else. Now, it is a better D3. All right, folks, interview aside, let's talk goblins. The March of the Goblins event is live. It's ending Tuesday. Short event, just 1 week, but it's short enough to not outstay its welcome. There's not a whole lot to the event. It's really just more goblins are spawning. But the main thing is that with this event comes the permanent introduction of 6 new goblin types. And again, they're just going to be more common during this week. And you also have a reputation track to go through, which doesn't take a whole lot of time to get through. If you're a weekend player, you might have to dedicate your weekend to doing it, but it is a feasible goal if you put some time and effort into it. If you're not done with D4 Season 7 yet, then the reputation track is going to give you some nice rewards to help you gear up your character and all that. If you are done with a season, it's not a whole lot of reason to partake in this event other than to check out the new goblins, which you'll see eventually anyway. There is a cosmetic portrait you can earn. Whether that's enough incentive to get you to grind it out or not, it's up to you. Overall, I think it would benefit everyone a lot more if these events happened within the first month of a season's launch before people were done with a season. I mean, you can classify events into 2 categories. One is the kind of event that's going to help you progress. And for those events that are going to help you progress, I think they should happen earlier in the season versus a kind of event that is like a just for fun event, that it could still be rewarding, but that the main reason why someone would engage with it is for the fun of the activity itself. I don't know that we've had any such events in D4 yet. An example in D3 would be the Darkening of Tristram, right? You do that because it's a fun thing to do by itself. Sure, there's kind of rewards just because there's rewards for playing the game, but you're not going out of your way to do it for the rewards. You're doing it because it's something new and different and fun. I think those kind of events are okay to do, in the middle of a season, because that's something that might bring back players, but any kind of event that really has a main thrust to help you progress, it's really just serving whoever is left. It's not going to bring people back. That said, this is March of the Goblins, as we said last week, and not February of the Goblins, so can't do much about that this time around. But I really look forward to encountering these new goblins at the start of next season. It's going to be really exciting to stumble upon a goblin that drops 60 million gold, or a goblin that drops 1,000 masterworking mats. Getting these early season, like, these are actually going to be exciting goblins to chase down. And the most exciting one remains Gelatinous Cyrus, who's basically a whole goblin pack in one goblin. You kill him, he splits into 2 smaller goblins, kill them, they each split into another 2. Now, unfortunately, it seems the same bug as in D3 has been carried over into D4, that if you do too much damage to Cyrus too quickly, then you don't get the final split into 4 goblins. The 2 original splits just die and no loot drops. I've read a patch note that apparently this only happens if they are frozen before they die, and that they've since fixed that. I haven't tested it for myself. I just found it truly funny that we are actually not just importing the the content from D3, but the bugs as well. Still, though, the goblins are a great addition to the game. Now, if you want to farm up goblins for the reputation track, you're wondering where to find goblins, what's the best place to farm them. I've personally found that there are tons of them in southern Nahantu. I just did a circuit around the area a few times and would find a goblin about every minute or less. You can also just do this in Helltide or in Witchtide to combine it with another useful activity, as opposed to just explicitly going for goblins. If you find a greed shrine, definitely pop those and kill as many enemies as you can, because while you are under the effects of a greed shrine, while you kill enemies, you have a chance to spawn a goblin, or you're gonna spawn goblins, basically. Speaking of shrines, the patch that hit this week also buffed conduit shrines, and I am positively content to report that conduit shrines have been upgraded from the awful cursed shrine that you want to avoid at all costs to now being not terrible. They've still slowed down most builds from both a move speed and a kill speed perspective, but hey, at least they do kill stuff now. I'm only mildly inconvenienced when I pop a conduit as opposed to completely neutered. Now, real quick, we got this week the campfire chat for upcoming Season 8. This revealed the season theme. Season 8 is a significant rework and enhancement to the boss ladder. We're getting Belial from Diablo 3 as the new top pinnacle boss, along with 2 other new bosses. Massive quality of life going on in how we do boss rotations. It's not going to be the same anymore. It's going to be vastly improved. And the borrowed powers this season are boss powers. Like, when you evade, you can burrow underground like Duriel. That's so cool. Or you can use Wandering Death's Cold Beam. Check out my full video on the recap of Season 8's theme. Switching over to Path of Exile news, the Legacy of Phrecia event has been extended officially to April 23rd, with official word from the devs that they are targeting June for the 3.26 expansion. Some players are suggesting to just let Phrecia run until 3.26, but remember, GGG had said that there would be more coming after Phrecia, so let's wait and see if they're cooking up something else. As for 3.26, June means that Settlers will officially be an 11-month league. And honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if we get another small delay that makes it an even year. That said, pressure is on GGG to make 3.26 an absolute banger after all this wait. And if there's one team that can deliver, it's GGG. Now, I imagine many new PoE 2 players tried out PoE 1 for the first time during this Phrecia event. PoE 2 brought in a whole lot of new players to Path of Exile, a lot of people that never really gave the game a try. Sound off in the comments if you're one of them. Anyway, if Phrecia was your first real PoE experience, like maybe you tried PoE in the past, you open it up, 5 minutes in, you see this passive skill tree and you quit. If this was like your first real PoE 1 experience, definitely come back for the next expansion, or even just try regular Settlers League right now, non-Phrecia, because Phrecia is aimed more at veterans. This is assuming you got, to mid to late game. Phrecia is aimed at veterans. They make core balance changes to the Ascendancy classes that, they're redoing them entirely, right? It shakes things up, mostly just for the sake of shaking things up. The core game experience is more and better balanced with better endgame customization. Then over in PoE 2 news, the devs are keeping major changes under wraps, but they did drop some teasers for content update 0.2.0. There seems to be a new Ascendancy focused on summoning mercenary-style minions. So imagine like a minion necro, but instead of reanimated corpses, you've got living warriors wielding crossbows and pikes and stuff. Basically a full-blown medieval command squad. Either that or it's just a one sidekick dude. It's hard to say. But we do see in one of the images, one of these minion dudes wielding a sword. We all know swords are eventually going to come to PoE 2. and that eventually may actually be patch 0.2.0 because GGG is big brain enough to do a teaser like this where they're pretending to tease one thing, but they're actually putting a sneak teaser of something else in there. Maybe I'm reading too much into the tea leaves here, but I don't know. Moving on to last Epoch news, Season 2 is shaping up to be an absolute banger, and the hype is real. Content creator Ghazi got to beta test the season, and he has been raving about the new endgame, calling it insane, and saying it's going to be crazy. And if Ghazi is positive about Season 2, that means minion builds are probably going to be really good, because he's the minion master. It sounds like we're getting a new endgame system that lets us customize our endgame experience, according to Aaron Action RPG, who also beta tested. It's basically a better PoE 2 Atlas, is what he said. And the devs have even confirmed that there are still unannounced features coming in Season 2. Combine that with new bosses, unique items, even more crafting upgrades, and as long as the launch goes smooth without big server downtimes or exploits or bugs or anything like that, then Last Epoch may just be back on the map. Always hoping for the best for these guys. They have some of the most ingenious solutions to problems that arise in the genre. Are you folks looking forward to Last Epoch Season 2? Sound off in the comments. On to some Monster Hunter Wilds news. Capcom just shattered records with this one. In just 3 days, the game sold over 8 million copies, making it the fastest selling title in Capcom's history. That's more than Monster Hunter World sold in its first 2 months. Absolutely wild numbers. And despite some glaring issues, people are clearly eating this game up. But let's get on to those issues, because, oof. Now, first off, and it's kind of minor in the grand scheme of things, character cosmetic customization is locked behind microtransactions. Again, Capcom pulled this move with Monster Hunter World, so it's not exactly a surprise. We also saw it in the demo. It's still a pretty scummy practice, especially when you have a full-price game with an inevitable paid expansion coming later. It's one thing, to lock some cosmetics behind microtransactions, but like, you cannot customize your character at all, basically, without paying. That said, it's not so bad for PC players, because you can just mod the game to give yourself unlimited free character edits, so I guess I can't complain too much. They could have done something to stop that from working. But speaking of PC, okay. The PC port of the game is not great. There's massive performance issues, frame dips, stuttering, bad textures, the whole package. Players with high-end rigs are struggling to hit stable frame rates, all while the game doesn't exactly look like it's pushing any kind of graphical boundaries. Both Eurogamer and Digital Foundry straight up don't recommend the game on PC. But even console players apparently aren't off the hook, with performance mode dropping well below 1080p resolution and still failing to maintain stable frame rates. It's like Capcom just didn't have time to optimize. This is likely the worst Monster Hunter game with regards to optimization, and yet it's still selling like crazy. So that's a testament to how fun the game is outside of those issues, with many players saying this is the best Monster Hunter game from a gameplay standpoint. And we saw that with Monster Hunter World. The devs did work hard to resolve issues pretty quickly after the game released, so I'm hopeful that we won't have to wait too long for things to get under control here. Still, I don't love that a game so terribly unoptimized is doing so incredibly well, because that's teaching publishers everywhere, hey, it's okay to release unoptimized games, we're gonna still buy the shit out of them. Now onto the lighter side of news, Monster Hunter Wilds is allegedly causing cheese nan shortages in Japan. Yeah, that's right. The in-game food looks so good that people are reportedly running to restaurants to satisfy their cravings. Now, some folks are saying this story is massively overblown, that it was just one restaurant that saw a boost in sales and tweeted a joke about running out of cheese naan because of the game. But hey, I just want to believe in a world where a video game can cause a massive countrywide food craze. Sounds like something you'd see in an anime. And in some nostalgic news, a solo animator just remade the Warcraft 3 intro cinematic from scratch, and it looks amazing. 3D artist Alireza Akbaria Rabbani took it upon himself to remaster the legendary opening cutscene using 3ds Max, the same software that Blizzard originally used. Now, if you're thinking right now, wait, are you currently playing the original cinematic or the fan remake? That's a sign of a good remaster. Yes, this is the fan version, and honestly, it's exactly as I remember the original. Obviously, it's not, but it's just a testament to how good this remake is and how faithful it is to the original. Then in some unfortunate news, the studio behind the Until Dawn remake, Ballistic Moon, has effectively shut down. The writing was on the wall back in September 2024 when the company laid off 40 employees, which was, I think, most of their employees. Now reports are saying that another 20 devs were quietly let go, leaving only the studio's founders and maybe a handful of staff behind. To make matters worse, it looks like there's no one left working on patch support for the Until Dawn remake. Bugs are being reported, but according to Insider Gaming, there's simply no team left to fix them. Now, it's worth noting that Ballistic Moon was a privately owned studio, meaning this shutdown wasn't directly caused by PlayStation. Everyone's going to want to point the fingers there. Sony contracted them for the remake, but after that project wrapped up, the studio must have failed to secure any new funding or some kind of a follow-up project, which has led to the downfall that we're seeing. I know a lot of fans were wondering from the start, why did Sony go with Ballistic Moon for the remake instead of Supermassive Games, the original devs of Until Dawn, but Supermassive has been so busy with Little Nightmares 3, the next entry in the Dark Pictures anthology, they probably just weren't available or otherwise turned Sony down. In other news, in an industry where co-op games often feel like an afterthought, Split Fiction just released and has a 90 out of 100 top critic rating on OpenCritic, with 98% of critics recommending it, marking another huge win for Josef Fares and his team. That's 4 bangers in a row now, following Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, A Way Out, and It Takes Two. And what makes Split Fiction stand out here, beyond being apparently an incredible co-op experience, is that it's also Electronic Arts' first game in over 13 years to hit a 90+ rating on Metacritic. EA, 90+ in 2025. Let that sink in. Beyond just being a great game, Split Fiction continues the trend of consumer-friendly moves, offering Friends Pass so that only one person needs to own the game, full cross-platform play, and an experience that's been widely praised as a must-play for couples or friends looking for a great co-op adventure. I'm planning to pick this one up, folks. What about you, folks? Also, what are some of your favorite co-op games? Sound off in the comments, because that's going to wrap up this week's video. But do be sure to check out last week's video in which we talk about Blizzard's official stance on loot filters in D4. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters for making these videos possible. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to join Rhykker's Raiders for more gaming content.